Welcome to SVG-TV News for Tuesday, April 9th, 2019. I am Rochelle Batiste with the details. Two ferries that ply the southern Grenadines route have been disabled, leaving authorities grappling to put alternative measures in place for the movement of people and cargo to and from mainland St. Vincent. As we hear in this report from Larissa Pugsley-Kidd, the management of one of the ferries, the MV Gemstar, which caught fire at the Kingston port on Monday, isn't sure when they will recommence operation.
The MV Gemstar and the MV Barracuda ferries are currently out of operation. The MV Gemstar caught fire yesterday morning while the MV Barracuda developed engine problems. Noting the negative impact the disabled ferries are going to have on the movement of people and cargo from the southern Grenadines, Director of Grenadine Affairs Edwin Snag, who was at Port Kingstown today, said temporary solutions are being sought locally and regionally by the authorities.
We are hoping and we are having discussions with other ferry operators. As a matter of fact, the management of the Port Authority has asked for some regional help in terms of we've looked at other vessels that are available. But one has to understand that shipping is $1 million industry. People don't invest in a vessel just to have it sitting anywhere or have it waiting for something to happen and then you just go and have it. It's not like you go out there and you rent a car because yours gone down. And government is not in the business of shipping. Government don't have boats. Government provides the necessary support for ferry operators in terms of duty-free concessions on all ferries and duty-free concessions on fuel, right? In terms of government, because some people, and I know the story, government, some people, what is government doing, you know what I mean? Because they expect the government to come up with a boat, but you don't pull a boat out of the sky. Things don't work like that.
Snag, who met with the distraught owners of the MV Gemstar and authorities of the Port Authority, noted the disadvantage of not having transport from Port Kingstown to the three affected Grenadine islands.
Star is the one I could call the major cargo carrier to the southern Grenadines in terms of like aggregate people, personal effects, and also passengers. So it's going to be challenging. And then we have the MV Barracuda, which developed some engine troubles yesterday likewise. So what we have is a double whammy of the two major ferries having some problems. We have a smaller one in guidance, which you probably across there, but that will definitely be inadequate. That alone cannot handle the sort of business that takes place to and from the Grenadines. Of course, there's the Easter celebrations in Union Island that begins on the 14th, and certainly this certainly must affect it, because one of the things with Easter is that it does have a certain amount of support and from persons on mainland St. Vincent who are coming down to the Grenadines for Easter. You know what I mean? And a lot of them come to Union Island for the Easter celebrations. This is going to impact on it. This is going to impact on it.
The MV Barracuda crawled into Port Kingstown today with the engine problem, but was not allowed to dock at the port. The MV Gemstar, on the other hand, remains at Port Kingstown as authorities sort out the logistics of having it relocated.
The management of the Port Authority is making the necessary arrangement to have it removed to another location where it is going to be much safer in terms of maritime operations, because of course you have cruise ships scheduled and other ferries scheduled to come into this particular area. So
at the scene today, firefighters could be seen experiencing difficulty extinguishing the fire on board the ferry. In a news release, the owners of the MV Gemstar said their operations have ceased until further notice, as the damage to the ferry was extensive. They apologized to customers who they thanked for their understanding during what they say is a very difficult time. Reporting for SVG-TV News, Larissa Pugsley-Kidd.
Meanwhile, this evening, the MV Gemstar was towed away from Port Kingstown and is now off the waters in the Rose Place, Edinburgh area. 14 employees at the St. Vincent Electricity Services Limited, VINLEC, were involved in a one-week industrial firefighting training completed last Friday, April 5th. Jarek St. Vincent Limited conducted a certification training in industrial firefighting for staff who are stationed at diesel power plants throughout the country. The company said the sessions are in keeping with its trust to operate in a safe and healthy work environment. In 2018, a firefighting simulation was conducted at Lomans Bay Power Plant as part of the Environmental Health and Safety Awareness Month in conjunction with the local fire service. The SVG Geothermal project is moving apace. The drill rigs are expected to arrive this week at Port Kingston and be transported to the geothermal drilling pad on Monday. Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves said residents in areas along the route to the geothermal plant will have to be patient as the traffic and noise will be evident.
100 containers, and we have to do so from 4 in the morning to escape the traffic. People are being informed and they can come and ask questions. If they don't go well, that's it, but answers will be further provided on the radio. To say to people in the night and in the morning, in the daytime too, but to escape the time for the traffic, the containers would be moved from town up in Rabaka. And because there's so many of them you have to move, the flatbed trucks will be moving up and going up and coming down. And to tell people, well, the little noise you're hearing, don't worry about it.
PM Gonsalves said preparation for the heavy-duty trucks on the road have already been completed.
But it's a company out of Iceland which owns the drill equipment. At least is going to do the drilling. And same people who are operating in Montserrat coming down with 10 containers. But we did over every bridge from Connery to Basin Hole. Not only because of the disasters which struck them, but we had to deal with them also because the geothermal containers were coming. Connery, which was financed by Taiwan. Byra Hill, Montiong, Caratal, Basin Hole.
The SVG Geothermal project is expected to be completed in 2 years' time. Natural disasters can have a major impact on children, and as such, stakeholders from across the region will be here in SVG to discuss issues relating to safety of children during and after a disaster. This as SVG prepares to host the second Caribbean Safe School Ministerial Forum slated for April 29th, which is a follow-up of a meeting held in Antigua in 2017. Among the objectives of the forum to be held later this month to update the regional roadmap on school safety, to monitor the accomplishments and challenges of the program, create an awareness and promote participation of the youth on issues relating to school safety and disaster management. Speaking at a launching ceremony today at the National Public Library, Minister of Education Sinclair Jimmy Prince said given the wide cross-section of stakeholders who will be participating in the forum, it is hoped that SVG's capacity to deal with disasters can be improved.
This particular meeting would bring together a number of state actors and other NGOs who would collaborate in order to ensure that the implementation of the school safety initiative is taken in the Caribbean, and also the United Nations disaster resilient strategies that we would work alongside these particular initiatives, and so strengthen what we already have in terms of our response to disaster preparedness, etc. We're going to have about over 100 participants, as I said, from a number of countries in the region, and organizations, partners such as CIDEMA and CDB and UNICEF and UNESCO, etc. So it promises to be a very important meeting, and we expect that at the end of this particular conference, not only the Caribbean, but St. Vincent and Grenadines in particular, would have gone ahead in terms of our response to disaster management.
Education Officer with responsibility for school safety, Dr. Ideal Ferdinand, said the protection of children remains an issue of critical importance to the ministry, and the forum creates an opportunity to learn from the experiences of regional counterparts.
Children have been sharing the experiences from Hurricane Irma and Maria. Those are the recent events as well as earlier events, and how it would have impacted the education sector, and in particular child protection. And so the issue of child protection has been a significant one in relation to disasters throughout the region. Some of the other topics include enhancing the regional roadmap for school safety, and it would be based on those experiences throughout the region. We recognize that there are some limitations, and so we'll be looking at how we can enhance the roadmap to address those limitations. We'll be looking at resourcing education sector resilience. As you realize, we would need to improve and enhance our human and financial capacity to address the school safety initiative, and so we'll be looking at things like financing and how other entities, our partners, regionally and internationally, can support our school safety implementation.
Highlighting the need for youth participation in activities of the disaster preparedness, Dr. Ferdinand said there will be a session for the youth at the regional event later this month.
And preceding the conference for 2 days will be the Youth Forum. This is the first time that the Youth Forum is being held under the theme, My Island, My Life, where young people from mainly the OECS and a few other countries will come together to discuss issues in relation to the 3 pillars of comprehensive school safety. The 3 pillars are safe school facilities, school disaster management, and disaster risk reduction and resilience education. The youths will put together their ideas and they will present them to the ministers at the ministerial forum. Some of the topics to be discussed at the forum include education sector resilience, possibility emerging from recent experiences.
Much more restrictions are needed if whale watching and whale catching are to coexist here in SVG. So says the Executive Director of the SVG Environment Fund, Louise Mitchell, as she spoke with SVG-TV News in response to recent comments made by Director of Grenadines Affairs Edwin Snag that there is nothing preventing both activities from coexisting in the country. Mitchell said the current regulations only protect the humpback whale, while the catching of internationally protected species such as the orchid is left unregulated.
But for them to coexist in a better way, there needs to be more restrictions placed on the killing of whales. There needs to be zones. If we're going to allow the killing of certain species of whales, there should be zones as to where that can happen, so that you don't have a clash between a tour that is out there doing whale watching and then a whaling boat coming out. So they can coexist if there's proper regulation. Right now, there's no regulation. There's no restriction whatsoever on the killing of the small cetaceans in Barra Leap. Basically, the persons can go out there and they can kill any of the small cetaceans that they find, whether it's the short-fin pilot whale, which is traditionally known as blackfish, or whether it's the spinner dolphin, the bottlenose dolphin, or the orca. They can kill pretty much whatever they find. And for whale watching to coincide with the whaling has to be regulated and restricted much more than it is now. Well, now it's not regulated at all. It's only the humpback whales that are regulated, but not the smaller whales that are killed on St. Vincent.
Mitchell said it was brought to her attention that last Saturday, one orca whale was killed near a community on the leeward side of the island. She said such activities will have a negative effect on SVG's image as an ecotourism destination.
So I think the government needs to give close consideration to what type of tourism do they wish to promote. Because for me, ecotourism is the only type of tourism that makes sense on the island of St. Vincent in particular, because we have such a rich biodiversity. And I think that is what, we don't have the white sand beaches that many tourists like, but what we do have is we have a lot of wildlife to showcase. But if we are going to be continuing to kill orcas and dolphins, I think it's going to be a very difficult thing to sell those hotel rooms on the leeward coast if persons are aware that these species are still being killed. So it's not just an issue of the humpback whale in Bequia that needs to be considered. It's the fact that St. Vincent is whaling is happening on, with different species across the country. And do we want to be known as an ecotourism destination, or do we want to be known as a destination where we have this tradition of whaling that is still very vibrant in this day and age when the rest of the world is heading in the opposite direction?
The SVG Environment Fund Executive Director said while she recognizes the historical significance of whaling on Bequia in particular, SVG's culture must evolve with the times.
Well, it's an archaic exercise. I think it was an important part of our culture once in the days when we did not have electricity. Whale was a meat that was very easy to store if it was salted and stored. So there was a time when it was important and critical to our existence. Right now, it is not necessary for the subsistence of the people, and we can have a much more lucrative livelihood if we go into wildlife tours and start preserving the whales. So I think it is time for our culture to evolve and to move in a different direction, because cultural traditions always change over time. Nothing is ever static.
The Forestry Services and the Ministry of Agriculture, Rural Transformation, Forestry and Fisheries is appealing to the public to avoid the use of hazardous substances to capture river, lobster, crayfish, shrimp, fish and other aquatic wildlife. A news release from the ministry's communication unit said during the Easter season, many persons attempt to catch aquatic river species by poisoning the water in which they live. The ministry is reminding the public that river poisoning is illegal. It can disrupt the natural processes of the rivers, streams and springs and may endanger the lives of the people in entire communities downstream, as well as other persons who may eat the fishes. Persons guilty of such an offense are liable to a fine of $2,000 and to imprisonment for 6 months. This is in accordance with Section 29 of the Wildlife Protection Act, number 16 of 1987.